Welcome, students of Form 3, my social studies class. Welcome in this video about the structure of government, and we're talking specifically about one topic about the so-called legislature. That's the topic of this video, talking about legislature. And this is a part 3 because I made 2 videos before. I subtitled them in Papiamento English and some other languages spoken on the island. So there's no excuse in not understanding this video. If you watch this video and you're not going to school at the Sky, but living abroad at Sabah, Statia, or Barbados, or Jamaica, or other Caribbean islands where they use the CSEC system of the CXC, this video could also be very useful for you because the content of the video is also applicable for your education. All the examples I use are mostly of Curacao, of course. And we're talking about describing the structure of government. That's the so-called learning outcome of this video, the learning outcome. We're talking about that purpose of this video. And in this part 3, we're starting with the role of the Prime Minister. And our current Prime Minister in Curacao is Gilmar Pisas of the MFK, who just won the elections. We're talking April 2025, and his political party just won the elections with winning 13 of the 21 seats in Parliament. And whatever the government is going to look like in a few weeks, he will be the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister is the head of the government. This is different than head of state. Our head of state is King Willem-Alexander van Oranje-Nassau, but Mr. Gilmar Pisas is the head of the government. Don't mix that up. He or she is appointed by the head of state, the Governor General, or the President, depending on this depends on the governmental system. So he or she is appointed by the head of state or the president. Our country doesn't have a president. Our country has a head of state. We are a constitutional monarchy. So our country does not have a president. We do have a governor, and officially the governor looks, it's a lady now, Lucille George Wout, and this lady, she looks at the results of the elections and she sees, okay, the MFK has 13 seats in parliament, that many votes, so she asks the winning party to form a government. Yeah, so that's our governmental system. But of course, this is based on what the governor sees as the results of the elections. And the appointment is made on the basis that he or she is leader of the political party that has won an election. So in our case, April 2025, it's obvious MFK has won the election. Yeah, he is, Gilmar Pisas is what we call in Dutch, the head of the list, the head of the candidate list, number 1. Not necessarily the leader of the political party, that will be Heidoorn, Sitri Heidoorn, who is now our Minister of Education. He is actually the leader of the political party, but the political leader would be Gilmar Pisas and the number 1 on the candidates list, so more or less it's true. Leader of the political body that has won the election, and the person best able to command the confidence and respect of the majority of the elected members of the House of Representatives. Our House of Representatives is called the Staten, the House of Representatives. It's one of the dogs of the neighbors who hurt himself, I think. Yes, our House of Representatives is called because it's like the Dutch was used to be dominant in Curacao, it is called the Staten. And it's located in Willemstad in the neighborhood of Punda. De Staten. That is the name of our House of Representatives, like you can see here. And the majority in parliament is MFK right now, and MFK has confidence and respect for Gilmar Pisas, and the MFK has 13 seats, just one less than a month ago in parliament. Like I said, we're talking April 2025. The Prime Minister has several powers and functions. He's not all powerful, but he has several powers and functions, and he or she determines the size of the cabinet and chooses his members. So Gilmar Pisas looks at how many ministers do we need and which people quem tabira e miembronan di cabinet. Who's going to be the members of cabinet? Who's going to be the minister of education? Who's going to be the minister of public affairs? Who's going to be the minister of finances? And so on. He determines how many ministers, e quantidad di ministerionan, et escoge e miembronan. The size, e grandidad, e miembronan. He recommends the appointment or dismissal of cabinet members to the Governor General, in this case the lady Lucille George Wout, assigns or reassigns responsibilities to cabinet members, and in a constitutional monarchy chooses a Governor General and recommends the appointment of the monarch. But that's different in our case because the king officially appoints the governor. So in our case, this is a bit different, but this is how it goes in the Commonwealth Caribbean often. Chairs cabinet meetings. This is the case. Gilmar Pisas chairs cabinet meetings. Chairs meaning not being the absolute boss of something, but actually meaning listening to his ministers that he has appointed, listening to their advice, their ideas, and giving the word to other ministers of government, so-called cabinet. So he's not the boss, he chairs it. De Milanese noste bisa de voorzitter. So he organizes and manages the meetings and is the chair of the meetings. Advises the Governor General when to dissolve Parliament, fixes the dates for elections, takes the lead in formulating policies of the country. That's really important. One of his most important functions, I would say. So he takes the lead. He has his leadership. Nangta leader ding formula interest policies. E formula e policies pa e pas pais. Ja, nangta e leader ding formula policies pa e pais. Takes the lead in formulating policies for the country. This is really, really important. And finally, so he formulates policies for the country and finally coordinates the work of the various ministries. That he does, but the main responsibility lies with the ministers of education, finances, and public affairs, and so on. He coordinates the work of the various ministries. What we've seen, he does not choose a governor, that's a bit different here, but very important is that he takes the lead in formulating policies for the country. Prime Minister, and at this current moment, that is Gilmar Pisas of the political party of the MFK. The role of the head of state. So our head of state is the King of the Netherlands, in our case, and that is King Willem-Alexander. Yeah, King Willem-Alexander van Oranje-Nassau. It always comes from the same family, and his wife is now Queen Maxima. She comes from Argentine. Perhaps you've heard of her. Yeah, the head of state may be a governor general. The governor acts as the replacement of the head of state, an executive president or a titular president. This is sometimes the case, but not in our case. But sometimes it is. Our head of state is King Willem-Alexander, and the person who replaces him, because King Willem-Alexander is not always present on the island of Curaçao, is Lucille George Wout, appointed by King Willem-Alexander, appointed by the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Yes. No, an executive president has full powers. A governor general or title president has mainly functions and limited and discretionary powers. Yeah. And the king, Willem-Alexander, that we have is only ceremonial. He doesn't have real power, actually. Yeah, but the governor uses these discretionary powers, so very limited powers, functional powers, to appoint the prime minister, the leader of the opposition. This we don't really have in Curacao, like one leader of the opposition. Independent senators, we don't really have them in Curacao, but in a lot of constitutional monarchies or republican democracies or parliamentary democracies, it does exist. Members of the local privy council, we don't have that either. And the governor does this also in a lot of Caribbean countries: appoint or dismiss ministers, dissolve parliament. This can happen in certain special cases. Appoint judges. This is also different. Yeah, so appoint and dismiss ministers. The governor cannot do that. And also appoint judges. This is not something on our island that Governor Lucille George Ward can do, but in special cases, the Prime Minister goes to Miss Lucille George Ward, our governor, to dissolve Parliament. This happened last year when there was a lot of fuss between PNP and MFK in October 2024, and Prime Minister Gilmar Pisas visited the governor to ask her to install the new minister for certain ministries and also to dismiss a number of ministers appointed by, um, well, came forth from the PNP. But this works a little bit different with us. We have a head of state, the king, or sometimes the queen. Um, in place of the king or queen on our island, there is a governor. The governor appoints the prime minister as a result of the elections. This doesn't really happen on our island. We don't have one leader of the opposition. But sometimes the governor can dissolve parliament. This sometimes can happen. But the prime minister asks the governor to do this. What have we done in this video? We've looked at the key points. The different branches of government are the legislature. We've talked about that in this video, the executive and the judiciary. And in two sets of three, I will talk in my coming videos about the executive and the judiciary. We've seen that the separation of powers is really important. It divides power between the three branches of government: judiciary, executive, and judiciary, executive, and legislature. We've seen that there's a unicameral legislature, so only one chamber. Uni means one. A bicameral legislature has two. So unicameral has one group, one chamber, one body, and a bicameral legislature has two. We've also seen that it is very important also now with the Man Bin and with the PAR that there is a powerful opposition that challenges the government and tries to introduce their own bills, although they are likely to get voted off because they don't have a majority. But in every democracy, being republic, parliamentary, or a constitutional monarchy like ours, a powerful opposition is very important. They hold the government in check and they check what they are doing and to try to introduce its own bills, its own legislature, its own laws. So this is really important, a powerful opposition that challenges the government and introduces its own bills, its own legislature, its own laws. And the head of state, and in our case it is the king, Willem-Alexander, has a replacement, the governor, in April 2025, Lucille George Ward. The king can have executive powers or a largely ceremonial role. Well, there are some executive powers just after elections, and in the case of Curacao, when things don't go as they should go, but these are very limited, the executive powers of Governor Lucille George Wout. But the governor and the king, as the real head of state, have a largely ceremonial role. So this is certainly the case. The governor as a replacement of the king, but also the king has a largely ceremonial role. One example I give that the governor holds a speech to inspire people during Christmas, and the king in the Netherlands, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, does the same. So they have like a role model, but they also represent the country when receiving guests from abroad, or in the case of our king, when traveling abroad, they have a ceremonial role. They represent the country as like a commercial at that moment. Yeah. For instance, in the past week, the Sultan of Oman, a Middle Eastern country, visited the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and then the king uses the palace in Amsterdam, Paleis op de Dam, to receive the Sultan of Oman. Talking 2025 of April, 2025 of the month of April to be exact. Yeah. So the king and the governor has a largely ceremonial role, but in some moments there are, like after elections, Lucille George Wout has some executive powers, but very limited, and only if things don't go right during those 4 years of a certain government, in our case that of MFK and that of Gilmar Pisas. Yeah. So the head of state can have executive powers or have a largely ceremonial role. And the prime minister is head of government, like I told you guys right now, Mr. Gilmar Pisas of the MFK. Head of government, not to confuse with head of state. Head of state is King Willem-Alexander. Head of government is Gilmar Pisas. Yeah. So we've talked about describing the structure of government. Of course, I work at the SPU. Well, to say I work, it's like half Dutch. And if you also follow with your school, wherever in the Caribbean, the CXC, CSEC system, this video was really useful for you too. The only thing is that I use the local situation of Curacao as examples. And sometimes I improve what the CXC says to connect with what we have on our island. So if you also follow the CXC, this could also be a useful video for you. If you want to subscribe, you can do that below. If you want to leave a comment, you could also do that below. And for now, a very nice day. And for the Form 3B that follows social studies classes, hope to see you during class in your best health.